I'm recording.
I am
Hello,
recording.
hello, everyone.
Can you do me a favor? Can you just clap your hands in front of your microphone?
Yep.
That'll work. I can use that to better sync my recording to the one you're going to upload, which sounds better.
It was a nightmare. I did a podcast one time for one of the video gaming websites that I was writing for a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 4-person podcast. So we all had to do a 5-second countdown and then all do a clap just to make it easier on the editor to sync up all the tracks.
Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day, about the way I synced it up. I said, it's got to be an easier way. And then the next time I listen to Ramble, they start every Ramble with a clap. And they leave it all in. And I was like, God damn it, I knew that. I knew that was a thing. But yeah. Little insight into how it's done. Because this is probably our cold open.
Sexy clap action.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of Screenplay Rewind. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
And how's it going, buddy?
Going pretty good. Swimming in some tea that I knocked over when my microphone collapsed. But other than that, everything's going great tonight.
Yeah, Ron almost ruined all of his equipment with one fell swoop.
While prepping for this podcast.
Yep.
So you know how it turned out since I'm here.
Yep. Much to the chagrin of some people out there that probably don't want to listen to us any further, but joke's on them. We're back, baby.
You can't get rid of us that easy.
You can't just fucking be kind and rewind, fucking Screenplay Rewind, you fucks.
This is a great start.
Today's episode is going to be over maybe my favorite movie of the past several years. Like, I kind of fucking love Knives Out. I'm not gonna lie. I love it more each time I rewatch it. I find more shit to like about it each time, and it just does not get old.
No, it gets better every time. This was my 4th time viewing it, I want to say.
I think this was my 3rd time watching it, but I could just reading through my notes for the episode makes me want to just go back and watch it again, even though I just fucking watched it like 7 hours ago earlier this morning.
Yeah, perusing like the wiki really makes me just kind of want to just put it on in the background.
Yeah. But yeah, this episode was originally going to be covering Jojo Rabbit, but me and Ron had kind of talked it over. And since the world is in pretty much the perpetual state of just being on fire right now, we were like, you know what? Why don't we just spend our Saturday night injecting a little bit of like much needed positivity, tiny little bit of positivity on the interwebs, and just fucking gush about a movie we love for a couple of hours, you know? Just like, why the fuck not?
Yep.
Also, just watching Knives Out makes me happy, so that's good. It's just like put it on the fucking Blu-ray. Just Knives Out makes me happy. Screenplay Rewind.
And that's our show.
But Knives Out again. Our show every week goes full spoilers. So please, for the love of God, go watch Knives Out. I would hate to spoil any of the amazingness that is Rian Johnson's Knives Out for anyone. It's so good. It's so fucking good.
Just go watch it.
Just go watch it. And then come back. And then you can hear us, just gush about how much we love it. Yes, please come back.
Please come back.
So it came out in November of 2019 in the U.S. It's directed and written by Rian Johnson. It is starring half of Hollywood, just about. Its cast is absolutely fucking insane.
Had you forgotten, other than when you're in the yogurt aisle, about Jamie Lee Curtis until this movie came out?
Now I'm trying to remember. Was this before or after the new Halloween came out?
This was before?
I'm gonna have to
look it up right now.
Yeah, I'm super curious. Let's see. Halloween.
This is some hot podcast action.
Yeah, this is this was so Halloween was 2018, so she kind of come back a little bit in like the public eye.
Because I always I remember thinking that she was, a great actress back when I remember watching her stuff, but most of that stuff I can come up with are like 90s movies.
Yeah, she kind of maybe voluntarily just kind of like a little bit of a retirement almost, because I don't remember her being like, 'cause she was obviously super popular in the 80s and is still doing a lot of stuff in the 90s, and maybe she just got burned out, because I can't think of
90s was True Lies, right? Like that's what I mostly think of when I think of
yeah,
Jamie Lee
I think
Curtis.
True Lies was like 94, so like kind of mid 90s, and then for a period of time it was like maybe the thing that kind of like broke the camel's back was just how pissed off she ended up being at the last couple Halloween sequels she was in, where she, I don't know if you're aware of this, but she forced the writers and producers to kill her character.
Really?
Yeah, just 'cause she was so sick of doing their sequels, she made them kill her fucking character, dude. It's insane. Yeah, and that's why those are no longer canon. But so this is a whodunit mystery that at the same time follows all of the same types of tropes that the like movies like Clue are, you know, famous for, but also really interesting enough, it re-examines the formula and how it can be applied to like characters within the story. Because like the interesting thing about Knives Out is, on the contrary of like typical whodunits, in which the mystery is kind of like the focal point of the movie, it kind of feels like in Knives Out what Rian Johnson wanted to do with like the whodunit genre is actually make some like really fucking good characters, because like especially Ana de Armas, who plays the main character, Marta.
Yeah, I love Marta.
Marta's fucking great, and she's a really fleshed out character for a murder mystery, you know? It's you don't typically see that. Typically, there's plot devices for the mystery.
Right. I watched one of the special features on the Blu-ray, which was, it's like a 6-minute video of Rian Johnson basically just talking about the philosophy behind making this movie. He cited, wanting to make a Hitchcock-esque whodunit following a sleuth, but the only thing he could come up with on how to do it well and do it in a way that engages the audience rather than the audience just kind of watching the events was to take an approach from Columbo. And he mentions the show Columbo like 5 times in this 6-minute video, talking about how Columbo always started out with showing you exactly who died, who killed them, and how they died. And then you're watching Columbo work it out as the thing goes. That was basically, this whole movie is Hitchcock meets Columbo in his eyes. One of the last things he says in the video was the only other thing that he wanted to do to help engage the audience was he tried to find a way to make the person who, seemingly killed the character in the movie a relatable, or like not relatable, but a sympathetic character. He wanted her to be sympathetic, and he had to like spend a lot of time trying to figure out a way to make her sympathetic so that you cared what was happening and that you were engaged with the sleuth and you're engaged with the characters. And I think he nailed all of those personally.
A few years ago, I would have told you a perfect movie doesn't exist, and then I saw this movie, and I can't think of a single flaw that I have with Knives Out. I can't think of anything.
I think one that I was going to bring to the table.
Okay, this is the last episode of Screenplay Rewind. We will no longer be recording. So if you checked us out for this long, you can no longer get show updates because they will no longer appear in the Twitter feed.
And we are no longer friends. Ends call.
And so this has been the end of this Discord call. Have a good night, everybody. But do you want to talk about your flaw now, or do you want to wait until like a little bit later into the?
You know what? We're going to be all about positivity. Let's get the flaw out of the way now.
Okay. I want to hear this, so I know exactly what caused the end of the Ron and Geoff friendship.
So I'm going to direct this mainly at Hollywood. Please stop putting lipstick on Chris Evans. Please. I don't know why.
Okay, I'm going to be real. This is not the direction I thought the flaw was going at all. I mean, I'm curious.
It's the only thing I could come up with that's wrong with this movie. Every movie with Chris Evans in it, his lips, it's like he got into his mother's purse. He's that way through the first half of the MCU, like 6 years of the MCU. Then they figured out, you know what, he shouldn't have lipstick, and they quit putting it on him. No one else has quit putting it on him.
Interesting. Well, I guess if the only flaw with your movie is the lipstick that's on Chris Evans, you probably have a perfect movie.
He's a gorgeous man. Stop putting lipstick on him. He doesn't need it. Let his natural beauty shine.
Right. You heard it here first. No more lipstick on Chris Evans.
Also, another thing I want to bring up real quick before we get into it, just as a quick aside since we're already on one. Why is Chris Evans, who is like reportedly one of the nicest guys in existence, plays such an asshole so well?
Oh, I know.
Why is he so good at it?
I don't know.
It makes no sense. You would think, if you knew nothing about Chris Evans and you watch this movie, you would think that's how he is in real life. It has to be. He's too good at it.
What's really interesting is, like, just retroactively thinking back to when he was cast as Captain America, I was so used to him being a smartass. I was like, whoa, how is he going to play stoic and earnest Steve Rogers when I only see him as a smartass because he's so good at it. And he's always so good at playing like just a complete dick, you know?
Like, literally the nicest I had ever seen him be in a movie was as Johnny Storm, who is still kind of a dick.
Oh, he's a complete smartass. And that's why you love him, because he's a lovable smartass, which is what Chris Evans, and like his role in The Losers, he's also a lovable smartass who's kind of a dick, but you love him because he's just so good at it. So it was actually kind of refreshing.
Losers for future podcasts.
Yeah, I would totally talk to Losers. Losers is fucking awesome. But it was actually, it's funny enough, is I was like taken aback when he was cast as Ernest Steve Rogers, and he was playing that character for so long. It was kind of refreshing to see him go back to playing a dick, because I love that side of Chris Evans when he's just a complete asshole.
Like, wait, you mean Chris Evans is going to be the Boy Scout? What? That's what I thought when I heard Captain America.
And he's one of my favorite representations and adaptations of a comic character ever, because he's so fucking good as Captain America too. He has so much range that it's amazing to me. But you want to talk some fucking range? Goddamn Daniel Craig back again.
Screenplay Rewind alum
from, he was fucking Joe Bang and Logan Lucky, and the motherfucker's back is Benoit Blanc.
I forgot his name was Joe Bang.
Joe Bang, dude. I need to go make all of my online handles in Rainbow Six Siege and shit like that, like Joe Bang.
Oh my god, I love it.
So perhaps the most bizarre yet amazing character choice is that Rian Johnson wrote for Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig in Knives Out, who is the main kind of gentleman sleuth of the film, who is at the focal point of trying to solve the mystery behind everything. He has a fucking Foghorn Leghorn accent.
Yeah.
He's got that South Carolinian drawl, and it's the first time I heard him speak in the theater when you and I watched this for the first time. I was like, Ron, is that James Bond? Like, what are we watching right now? Because how can you have on one end of your acting spectrum James fucking Bond, and on the other one Joe Bang and Benoit Blanc? Like, what do you mean? It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, how do you pull off that? And like, by the way, a big reason behind Daniel Craig's audition process was in the script. Rian Johnson had the southern accent was a part of his character in the script, and he saw him speak that way for Joe Bang and Logan Lucky, and it actually kind of initiated some of their initial conversations. It's kind of interesting.
Let me guess. CSI KFC?
This movie's so many one-liners, dude. Almost every line is quotable.
I won't eat one iota of shit.
And Rian Johnson's script is so fucking good. There's so many lines that just are kind of throwaway in the background that aren't even part of the traditional mix. They're not even
one of them is super important to the plot.
Yeah.
It literally fades out a woman as she's saying something super important, and you just barely catch it.
And this movie, you can't fully appreciate this movie until you at least see it 2 times, and you pick up on the absurd amount of foreshadowing in this movie is just batshit. But before we get into the plot, I want to go ahead and round out the rest of the cast. So we talked about Chris Evans and Daniel Craig. Chris Evans plays Ransom Drysdale. Ana de Armas from Blade Runner 2049, and in the next Bond film, The Reunion with Mr. Blanc, is we mentioned previously Marta, the protagonist. Jamie Lee Curtis plays Linda Drysdale, part of this big family, which is kind of the center point of the mystery. Is it's a very like in-depth plot line, but it's presented very smoothly by Rian Johnson's script throughout the film, where it's like there's a lot being thrown at you, but you at the same time don't really feel lost. But it centers around the death of a murder mystery writer, and his entire family is kind of in the wake of his death, breaking down his inheritance, and that's kind of the main driving plot point. But the rest of the family members of the mystery writer is we have mentioned Jamie Lee Curtis is one of the daughters. Michael Shannon plays Walt. He's like the youngest son
We've
of
got
the writer.
Captain America and General Zod in the same movie.
Yeah. Don Johnson plays the
Nash
husband
Bridges. Have you seen Don Johnson around in a while? I was stunned when I saw him the first time I saw this. He's almost unrecognizable, by the way.
He's been popping up as like little character actor bits that I have seen him, but mostly in very obscure like Geoff style movies that I don't think you would had ever checked out, just because they're just random little side movies.
Yeah,
that
I used to watch Nash Bridges, and my parents had it on all the time.
Yeah,
so.
my mom and dad were fucking obsessed with that show. They constantly watched Nash Bridges.
Yeah, it had fucking God damn it, I can't even think of the Mortal Kombat character he played in it. Shang Tsung.
Okay.
Was in Nash Bridges even. That was one of the things that always drew my attention, him and Cheech. But yeah, fucking Nash Bridges is in this movie.
Yep. And I believe wasn't his first like big breakout role Miami Vice? Wasn't he the main dude in Miami Vice?
I believe so, but I've never seen any iteration of that show.
I believe he was in the original late 80s show. Toni Collette plays a member of the family. Christopher Plummer, I love Christopher Plummer. He plays the writer and the kind of like patriarch of the entire household.
Yeah.
Because his writing fortune has funded almost every single thing this family has ever done in its wake.
Can I adopt Christopher Plummer as like a third grandpa?
He's so fucking awesome, dude. I love me some Christopher Plummer. One of my also up and coming supporting actor that I absolutely love is Lakeith Stanfield, who plays the detective that is working with he's the black dude that's working with Benoit Blanc and the other state trooper dude.
Yeah, I just found out he was L in that Netflix Death Note movie.
Death Note, yeah. He's super fucking awesome in Donald Glover's Atlanta. He's one of the main characters in that. He's fucking great in that show. He's my favorite part of that show.
He's apparently also in Get Out.
Yes, he is the dude who actually gets kidnapped in the opening scene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of like most of your kind of like focal points, and they have a ton of supporting characters that are just kind of like grandsons and like grandnieces of Harlan Thrombey, who is Christopher Plummer.
Frank Oz.
Frank Oz, yeah, he plays the attorney who's like the executor of the will once they get to that point in the film. But yeah, let's start breaking into the kind of plot. So I love the just crazy amount of symmetry and like foreshadowing that the opening scene has, because you open up with like the exterior shot of the house, and then like the first thing you see after you see the house is the coffee cup.
Yes.
Which is pretty fucking cool.
Which I did not notice until this viewing.
Yeah. And if you want to talk like this movie, and I think part of the reason I just like fucking like I can't get enough of it is this is crack for people who just appreciate like this, like the way that you put together a really thought out script, because of the amount of foreshadowing. No line of dialogue is ever wasted. Everything is important, whether you are aware of it or not. It's like one of the notes that I had.
The thing that I appreciate is it's not trying to hammer something into your head. It lets you either remember it or you don't. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies that are like this that are really bad about flashing something in your face and holding it there So you will fucking remember it later. And it's like, dude, if I forget it, I'll remember it on the next viewing. This movie just lets it all go in passing, very organic, the way the lines are, the way the details are. It seems inconsequential sometimes. And like I said, one of the details is fucking fading out where you can barely hear it, and it's important.
Yeah, fucking Rian Johnson, there's no spoon feeding in the entire 2 hour and 10-minute runtime of the film. It's just there. You had to be like, even when you're paying attention for shit, you can still miss it because it's so subtle. Just like cool little bits of foreshadowing, like one note I had made. So after they have had this, so Harlan Thrombey, the writer's death, is at first reported to be a suicide. And that's what the cops are kind of going off of. All of the evidence is pointing to it being a suicide because they have found there weren't any other people that could have been with him at the time of death based on what information they have as far as interviews from the family members. And he slit his own throat as the suicide, which is the first indicator for Benoit Blanc that this couldn't have been a traditional suicide, because who the fuck kills himself by slicing their own throat? That never happens. Right. It's totally not feasible. And I love the line. So the kind of like opening scenes for the film after they have the body discovered is they're doing one-on-one interviews with Lakeith Stanfield's detective and Benoit Blanc in the background, and they're interviewing each member of the family, figuring out like their kind of personal interview and background on where they were and what they were doing the night of the death, which was his birthday.
Now they spend a lot of time on this scene, and it is all worth it. It is so beautiful how not only does it tell you everything you need to know about the case, it tells you what actually happened, but it tells you everything you need to know about each character from the get-go. And your opinion of those people, after hearing them talk, is correct through the entire movie.
Oh, yeah. There's also, I also like really love when writers are able to sneak in stuff that is literal, but you take it as figurative the first time you watch the movie and hear the lines of dialogue. Like one I had noticed on this viewing, Jamie Lee Curtis says, "Dad and I had our own secret way of communicating." Mm-hmm. She literally has a secret way of communicating with her dad. They show later in the movie where they use this type of ink that can only be shown when you shine and like heat it up with like fire. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that is a line that can be taken figuratively, you know, it just kind of comes across like she's talking about how she had, you know, like a special relationship with her dad, you know, like where it's just, they had their own kind of way of, you know, like bonding and communicating and but it's literal. It's so good.
Daniel Craig has one very similar in the same scene too, when he's asked who hired him. And he says, "Oh, I cannot say." As if it's client privilege. But the truth is, he doesn't fucking know.
He literally doesn't know.
Yeah. He literally cannot say.
There's so much of that where, like, I'm fascinated to know how many drafts Rian Johnson had to do for this script.
I also want to know how many times it was rewritten on the fly on set.
Because like another thing too is like when you have a mystery that ends up being as in-depth as this is, surely he had to have accidentally had like logic issues as far as you know, like the logistical whereabouts of like all the characters, because there's so many moving parts. There's so many characters that end up being involved that are really important characters. One really, really cool moment too is like you were talking about how each of the interviews kind of gives your kind of first interpretation of the character. It's very important to see the way that Michael Shannon's character is responding to. Michael Shannon is the youngest son of Harlan Thrombey, who runs the publishing company of his books. Blood and Wine, I believe they said, is the name of the production company.
Great name with a great logo.
Great fucking name. So when they're asking him what he does, this was his. I believe this is kind of paraphrased, but when they ask him what he does for, you know, like his work, he says, "It's the family publishing company." Mm-hmm. So this one line establishes the fact that Michael Shannon is basically in this position where he's technically running the publishing company, but he has literally nothing to do, because they talk about later on in the film that a big turning point between Walt and Harlan is that Harlan, the writer, refuses to let them option off any of the stories for, like, he's talking with Netflix. Walt is, trying to get it sold because that's where the most money is. If you have stories that are as famous as these, it's not the sell of the books, it's optioning it off to Hollywood.
Right.
And Harlan will not allow him to do it. So he pretty much is just a shill. He does nothing. He just has he's kind of like the figurehead of this publishing company that is completely founded on, like, the quality of his dad's books, and he doesn't do anything really. And he's kind of aimless as a human being, almost, like, professionally wise.
And he kind of walks around and even talks kind of like he's a husk, kind of like an aimless, just wandering person, like,
yeah, he's like soulless almost, like,
yeah.
He has no, like, he really, it's like he wants to prove to his dad that he's, like, worth something by, because he totally could because of how popular these books are. He totally could sell these off to Netflix and they'd make even more money. But Harlan just doesn't want to do that. He views his books as kind of sacred, like just the way they are on the page, like a lot of authors are,
Right.
And Michael Shannon, I think, is fantastic because he has moments of, like, just like he does, where he kind of goes, like, over the top and can be kind of intimidating, but he also has that kind of, like, more like whimsical kind of idiot side where he doesn't really come across as competent, and he walks that tightrope really well in this movie. I think he's great.
On a first viewing, it would be kind of easy, I think, to write off his performance in this. Right, but I think subsequent viewings, you realize just kind of when you know the character well, the story of the character, what's going on with the character. I think it comes through in subsequent viewings.
Yes, it's a very subtle performance, especially when you have fucking Captain Droll across the room with Daniel Craig just, like, literally chewing up the fucking scenery the entire time. It's a very subdued performance. I also this was a little detail I noticed on this viewing as well that I absolutely love, as far as, like, if you want to talk, like, subtle performances. I love and I'm assuming it's a direction choice from Rian Johnson, but I absolutely fucking adore how Christopher Plummer has a different demeanor based on which person is remembering, like, conversations with him.
Yes.
Because if you watch the way that Christopher Plummer
is playing, like, 5 different versions of this character.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's not playing Harlan, he's playing their memory of Harlan or the version of Harlan they're telling to the police.
Exactly. So the thing with Christopher Plummer, and I think it's such a great performance, and it's especially one that you appreciate.
Harlan, I don't know if we've said his name in the movie. Harlan is the guy that is murdered.
Yes, he's the murder mystery, like, super famous writer. He's pretty much like the Stephen King of, like, murder mystery in this world.
Yeah, the Agatha Christie, but famous in his time.
Yep. And his inheritance is worth $60 million based off just the publishing company and the book sales, which is pretty fucking nuts.
How much do you think that house alone is worth? He owns it outright, they say.
Yeah, and it's a massive fucking house too. It's literally the fucking Clue house, which they make a point of talking about.
He
in the
lives
movie.
on a Clue board.
Yeah. So, like we were talking about how everyone has their own kind of rendition of Christopher Plummer. The Christopher Plummer, when Walt is talking, when Michael Shannon is talking, is very condescending. Because that is how he viewed him. He viewed him as kind of like a condescending dad who never really trusted him with anything, and that's why he would never let him sell off the books as adaptations. But what it really was is he wanted him to eventually kind of, like, and Christopher Plummer's character ends up kind of setting this up for everyone in his family, but they have all become, sycophants. They're living off of his success. They're each in their every way. Even Jamie Lee Curtis's character, who, is probably the most, like, competent of the group, only was able to start her own business based on a $1 million loan from Harlan. They all either completely live off of his success, or they used it to get a huge jump start in life. And he's trying to, break them out of that mold and let them, try to create something for themselves. And the Christopher Plummer who is probably the closest to the way he actually was, is Marta's representation. When Marta is having, and what's cool too is like you mentioned earlier about like Rian Johnson's like kind of foundation for the movie being like Columbo. This movie is over 2 hours long. I think it's right at about 2 hours and 5 minutes if you take out the few minutes of credits at the end. 35 minutes in is where we see exactly what happened as far as what led to the death. You know, it's not presented initially as a traditional whodunit of where you're trying to figure out exactly how he died. You know, it's trying to figure out like the fallout from it. But 35 minutes in is where we see what actually happened. And I think that Marta's representation of Christopher Plummer is the most accurate because he literally is willing to kill himself just to Marta is his nurse. She has been just over the past, it seems like over the past like maybe like year or a few months, she's become his like private nurse where she goes over and gives him his medication, and he is this takes place following the birthday party late at night. He wants to do their tradition where they play this board game called Go, and right after they have finished the game, she's about to be leaving, and she gives him his medications, and she gives him a little bit extra of kind of just like a birthday present, gives him a little bit of morphine because he has been using it for his I think they talk about how he had like a shoulder problem.
Yeah, he pulled his shoulder.
So what leads to his death initially is she has just kind of this standard syringe for 100. I'm gonna mix up the names. Obviously, it might even like what actually is given to him might even be a made up chemical. We don't actually know. I'm not a nurse. But she believes she's accidentally given him 100 milligrams of morphine, which is fatal within 10 minutes.
And how much is the correct dose supposed to be? And then she says 3. He's like, oh, that's quite a bit less. And I love also that he's like, now let me get this straight. Is like, it would be basically untraceable, and if it happened, the person would die within 10 minutes. Hold on, I need to write this down. This is a great plot for a murder mystery. Yeah, and like pulls out his book and just starts taking notes and just asking her questions.
It's such an awesome moment because I noted that down in my notes. Is he's about to die and he jots down the drug mix-up for a future story because he's a writer at heart.
Right.
He's literally in the process of dying, and all he can think of is, oh my god, that would make for a great story.
Yeah.
It's such a good human moment, and I just love Christopher Plummer in this movie so much.
I love also when, he's in this moment, and I can't tell. His facial expressions, to me, don't really jive entirely with what he's saying. I almost wonder if he's acting calm to not stress out Marta more, because his face is a little bit panicked. But he's sitting there like, no, I have to write this down. This could be a good story. And he keeps like looking at her. And then when he gets to the, the line of without the life-saving antidote, and then he's like, Marta, you do have the antidote, right? And then she's like, yeah. No, it's here. It has to be. It comes with the kit. And then he's just like, Marta. And she's like panicking. And he just goes, and then that's when his face changes. And he's just like, Marta. Like his tone and everything. Like he knows, because he's already pointed out, if he's going to be dead in 10 minutes, he lives in a rural area. It's going to take at least 15 for the ambulance to get there.
Yep.
So, but it's like if you watch his performance, it's a really complex moment. I don't know that anyone but Christopher Plummer could pull off, because like I said, this is probably my 4th time viewing it, and I'm watching him in this scene. He's already mentioned he's not afraid to die, which he makes clear in this scene. But what he is saying and the way he's acting is not really jiving with his facial expressions, and he's not really taking his eyes off of her, and she's full-blown panicking, and it's like he's trying to just kind of he's obviously a fun dude, right, to hang out with. You've seen that. It's like he's trying to keep like the whimsy of the moment up, I think, for her sake more than anything, because he's clearly not worried about himself.
Yeah, because she is in full-blown panic. She is bursting into tears. She is in full, and Ana de Armas is also fucking
fantastic.
Anytime she has a scene where she is just like emotionally devastated, she's so amazing in this movie. Like, oh, it's so good. She sells it so well. Some other just amazing foreshadowing that, like, I think I caught this in the second time watching the movie, but
the knife.
The thing with the knife So he's talking about kind of different conversations that he's had with members of the family. So he says, speaking of Chris Evans' character Ransom, he says, so much of me and that kid playing life like a game without consequences until you can't tell the difference between a staged prop and a real knife, which ends up being part of the climax later with Chris Evans' character. And it's like, when I heard that line the second time watching, I think my jaw dropped because I was like,
me too.
It's so spot on with the kind of where the representation of a line as far as taking it literally and it being figurative, because the first time you hear that, you're not taking it literally at all. It just sounds like a writer waxing poetic, about the relationship that he has with his grandson,
which he waxes poetic a lot.
You can tell, and it's funny too, is because like the way that he talks is the way that Rian Johnson speaks in real life. He waxes poetic because he's a fucking genius writer. It feels like Christopher Plummer's character is like the way Rian Johnson would speak if he was in his like 80s.
Do you think Christopher Plummer's character is how he views himself? Maybe
it has. There's so much of that kind of like, if you've ever listened to Rian Johnson, he's such a kind and fun dude, which is such an awesome change of pace, because most people that are as smart and as talented as Rian Johnson are complete fucking like self-centered assholes.
Now, I will not have you speaking ill of Michael Bay on this podcast, sir.
No, I mentioned people of talent. That's where you were mistaken. But
I can't do this. Walks off podcast.
Just walks off the podcast. So yeah, by the way,
yes.
If you are interested in movies, writing, cinematography, directing, like just anything to do with film in general, listen to any podcast that Rian Johnson is on, and especially watch the Vanity Fair video where he breaks down a scene in Knives Out, and you will have a brand new appreciation to like the level of attention to detail that he and his cinematographer had for this movie. It will blow your fucking mind. But back with this scene, it's just it's so heartbreaking to see like Ana de Armas as she realizes the antidote's gone and he's going to die, because you can tell this is a genuine friendship. It's not just that she's terrified that she's killed somebody accidentally. She's terrified that she's killed her friend, like a dear friend. And it just comes across so genuine, and their performances are so great. And a lot of it is, especially with Christopher Plummer, it's in the subtleness of it that you can't pick up until you watch it. So if you have watched this movie, please, it's available on Amazon Prime Video right now. So find a way to rewatch it as soon as possible, because you will find brand new things to appreciate about it. But him being the mystery writer that he is, within these last few moments, all he cares about is making it to where Marta cannot be
implicated
in his death, because he's aware that Marta's mother is in the country illegally, and it would create a huge shitstorm for her family, and she would potentially get deported if she was caught. And I just love that he's so selfless. Like, could you imagine slitting your own throat? Like, the amount of willpower where somebody would have to do that? Like,
I mean, he's crazy. Already said he's not afraid to die. He knows he's going to die no matter what now at this point, right? The clock is ticking. He's going to die in 10 minutes of the injection. When he's breaking down to her what to do, I think he says they have like 6 minutes left, which I just thought of something I'm going to bring up here in a second. But they have like 6 minutes left. It would have taken 15 minutes for the ambulance to get there. So he's dead. So now his mind has just immediately shifted to protecting her and her family, because there's nothing you can do for him. He's got nothing to gain at this point in any way. And she is genuinely his friend, which, when she's talking to Daniel Craig earlier, he hired her privately to be his nurse. And he's like, for medical attention? And she's like, he needed a friend. And we know why. Look at his fucking family.
His family is so awful, and none of them give a shit about him at all. They just view him as a bank account.
Oh, I have my opinion, but I imagine you'll follow your heart. Anyways, that's a quote from the end of the movie. But I just thought of something. So,
okay.
He waxes poetic. He's a murder mystery writer, and it's a really odd choice that he slits his own throat for the suicide, but they had 6 minutes left, and he's breaking it down, right? She said after like 5 minutes, he would start getting like delusional thoughts and stuff. Does that play into delusional thoughts, or is that a great murder mystery writer being,
having a flair for the theatrics,
having a flair for the theatrical?
Yeah. So it could be a placebo as well, because in his mind, because if you were told that by a person that you trust who is a medical professional, you would believe them. Right. So it could be a little of column A, a little of column B, where he thinks,
he's got no reason to not believe her. She's his friend.
Yeah.
And like,
just
as
based
we're
off
going
her
to find out,
reaction.
it's an overreaction. Like, obviously, like, he's not really, because the twist in the movie later, but
yeah.
I mean, is that why his mind goes there?
It seems to be a very specific choice.
It's
and
like he's very aware of the time, and she told him 5 minutes, and he specifically said like a minute ago that it's been like 6 minutes, or they only have 6 minutes left.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because nothing in this movie is an accident. That's the reason I bring it up.
Yeah, nothing in every part of the set, every bit of dialogue, every delivery from the actors. Nothing happens by accident. This is maybe the most like handcrafted film ever made. It is just filled with so much attention to detail in every creative aspect that you can throw into a movie.
Do we know how long Rian Johnson worked on this script before he made it? Because this seems like one of those scripts that would be written for like 5 or 6 years or something.
I think this is one he's had in the back of his mind,
like 20 years.
The one that he had. The one that he had in his mind for the longest time that broke him into Hollywood is Brick, which is a movie that I might actually throw on the pod at some point, just have an excuse to revisit again. Because Brick was his first film, which is a murder mystery, not a whodunit style murder mystery. It's more of a noir type of murder mystery, and it's starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It was like one of the first dramatic roles that he ever did, actually, because he was just known as the Third Rock from the Sun kid for the longest time.
Is
and
he
it
in
was
Third
Brick.
Rock from the Sun?
Yeah, he's the teenage son.
Is he really?
Yeah, that was his kind of breakout.
I remember what's his face being in it, but I guess he was. I didn't really watch that show much. It wasn't really for me, but that I find that shocking, because that means I know him better than I thought I did.
Yeah, if you look up a picture of, if you compare like Joseph Gordon-Levitt from Inception to Third Rock from the Sun, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, it's pretty shocking.
Because he's got that like shoulder length hair, like the kid from Independence Day, right?
Yeah,
he's got that same kind of haircut.
It was like what when did that show come out? Like 97. It was like super fucking 90s. But
John Lithgow is who I'm trying to think of. He's in there. Right?
Thank you for finding that, because I was like, I love him to death. How do I not know his name off of the top of my head?
I know, it was killing me too.
So with this last few moments, he creates this whole in-depth plan to get Marta off scot-free.
He basically writes the book that he was just taking notes on.
Yep. Within a matter of seconds, he has like. Because it's cool too, because
it's like that Stephen King moment in Family Guy when he gets hit by the car and thrown through the air, and he's like, "Oh, this would be a great story," and he just starts writing as he's falling in there. As soon as he hits the ground, he goes, "Done,
done." Yeah, and it's cool too, because this is even foreshadowed before this happens by what Walt says, what Michael Shannon says, because he mentions about how Dad always said the plots just came to him, and you see it happen in real time. Like, he has this whole it's a legitimate murder mystery ending.
And the horrified look on Marta's face as he's going through it all.
And he's so matter of fact about it. He has, because the plan is fucking bonkers, dude. She has to go downstairs dressed up in his nightgown, essentially, at the exact time that he knows that like Walt will still be down smoking a cigar on the front porch. She has to make sound to where it appears that he was still alive at the time that she originally left. But this is after she had left. Fucking, he has the exact, like, who other than a mystery writer knows exactly the range of his fucking security camera. Like, that's the first thing he tells her. You know, it's like when she's driving away, it's like, now you have to go past the whatever statue it is, and then you're beyond the security camera.
So
range.
I love the voiceover there. Because, again,
it's so good.
It changes with her memory of him, right? Like we talked about earlier. Because she's like, shit, was it before or after the elephant statue? And then you hear him say, before, in the narration. And she's like, or maybe it was after. And he was like, no, it was definitely after. Like, his narration changes as she's trying to remember.
And when she can't remember, the third line reading that he has is like, he says, oh, be after for. He literally merges the words. And it's such a corny fucking joke, but Rian Johnson just makes it work in this film, and Christopher Plummer makes it work because they're just fucking geniuses, dude. Yeah, it's so elaborate, the cover up to get Marta out scot-free, and it's just
you have
awesome.
to imagine a writer like Harlan has like fantasized of his own death before, right?
Yeah,
like he has to have, because he's got to put himself into his stories.
Yep. They go through with the cover up, and the movie kind of kicks back into, and like the first time I watched this in the theater, this part shocked me because I thought for sure this was going to be a traditional whodunit, in that kind of the more not like the Columbo-esque style was not what I was expecting. I was expecting like Clue, where this would be something you see in the final 5 minutes of the movie, not 35 minutes into the runtime, which is ballsy. Because like you have to really have good characters and good revelations to happen after this for this movie to still be as engaging as it is all the way throughout. And by the way, the pacing on this movie is insane.
I know. No, it's very strange, Jeff. It's almost as if Rian Johnson had confidence in his project and confidence in the actors, and like he was confident that the audience would buy into it even if he didn't hold their hand or, service the fans. It's really strange. It's a strange notion someone would be confident in their product. Yeah,
surely you can't have a major Hollywood movie that doesn't, hold the audience's hand the whole time. That would be
bonkers, dude.
That would be a Star Wars sequel that I never want to watch again. Like, oh my god.
I mean, Kathleen Kennedy would never let that happen.
Just side note, if we never get... I'm the one person that like fucking adores Last Jedi. If we never get the Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy that was announced just because of how much the internet bitched about Last Jedi, I'd be so sad. Because
it's dead in the water, dude. You know it. It's dead.
I know deep down it's dead, and I'm sad about it because I think Rian Johnson's like what the franchise needed to kind of break away.
With balls, dude.
He was the only one, the only movie in the news. I like how this is just 180 into a Star Wars discussion, but fuck it. The only Star Wars movie since The Empire Strikes Back to have testicular fortitude is The Last Jedi. The only Star Wars movie that dared question character motivations or do fucking anything interesting of note at all with the property was Rian Johnson, and the internet, a good chunk of it at least, the loud portion, fucking hated it, and it pisses me off. But
here's being serviced, Jeff. I personally love being serviced anytime I can get serviced.
Let's not talk more about the rise of fan service and MacGuffins, because that movie didn't happen. That is fan fiction.
On just for the audience's benefit, I don't even know how it came up, but Jeff and I had an exhaustive text message conversation about this like a day or two ago, and it is still very fresh in our minds. Yeah. So much so that our Discord got renamed. So
So
that's why it spilled over.
To bring it all back.
Spillover replay.
And, Be Kind Rewind. To bring it all back. Since we're being all about positivity, the bright side of Rian Johnson's project with Star Wars no longer being a thing, really, like 98% is dead in the water, You never know, should Kathleen Kennedy, rightfully lose her fucking job and have somebody that actually likes Star Wars in charge of the property, but you never know. He is now going to be making fucking Benoit Blanc movies for a long time, I think. And it's fucking
Daniel
awesome.
Craig, so he's already said that he wants to do a sequel, not a sequel to the characters in Knives Out, but another movie starring Benoit Blanc.
Yes, they've confirmed a second one. It is official now. He is writing the second one with Daniel Craig returning.
And Daniel Craig, at the time, in a separate interview, when asked about it, said that he would do that character as many times as he was asked.
You can tell just based off his delivery with all the dialogue.
This is from the guy that said he would rather slash his wrist than be James Bond again. So he
would
wants
rather
this
pull
role.
He would rather pull a fucking Harlan Thrombey and slit his own fucking throat than play James Bond ever again. One of the most beloved characters of all time. Okay, I have officially broken Ron. So we will be back to our regularly scheduled programming once Ron is able to contain himself.
I just imagined Daniel Craig in that interview with about 007 just pulling a knife out of his belt. Harlan Thrombeying himself.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm so
I like
sorry.
how we turned Harlan Thrombeying into a verb, too. A very specific and very dark verb.
I am very tired and I've had a lot of caffeine.
You can tell that fucking Daniel Craig adores this character and just loves chewing up the fucking scenery as only he can with that fucking accent.
You gotta imagine, as an actor, that every once in a while you need one of these roles almost to just relax. You know,
Yep.
You're giving it your all the time. Every once in a while you just want to get in front of a camera or get on stage and
have
just
fun.
be stupid and have fun.
And just have fun, which this everyone, like, I mean, Rian Johnson has talked about this, because I've listened to a couple of podcasts, about, like, the production of this movie. He has said that, like, it's really funny in that 98% of the movie is just everyone hating and yelling at each other. And he said on set, everyone was the best of fucking friends and everyone had a great time making this movie where Michael Shannon literally screams at Captain America, "I will not eat one iota of shit."
I couldn't tell if it was him or Don Johnson. I knew it was one of them.
It's Michael. I think actually Michael Shannon, if I recall correctly from the YouTube video I mentioned earlier, I think he improv that line. And Rian Johnson just fucking kept it in. That's part of the reason why it's just in the background, you know? Like,
What is the line? What's the line later in the movie that he says? The Nazi kid masturbating in the bathroom.
I almost just spit out my drink all over my keyboard. The Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom.
Oh,
fuck.
God, this
We need to
movie.
make it. We're gonna make a next week. This is gonna be this is turning into the Knives Out fucking Harlan Thrombey hour. We're just gonna do commentaries of Knives Out for a year straight, like that Grown Ups 2 podcast.
It's on Amazon Prime. Come to my Twitch
It's-
channel. We'll do a watch party.
Oh shit, we might have to do that at some point. But
we need
okay.
our own for watch parties is what we need.
Oh yeah, we need to actually make a SPR Twitch account. We have not done that yet. Now that I think about it. So let's go back and okay. So they
Now
show
that business is concluded. Back to the show.
what we were talking
happening?
about. We just had like 17 fucking segues on top of segues on top of segues. Okay, who done it? Benoit Blanc. Okay, recentered. Okay, so they show you the fallout after the suicide where Christopher Plummer killed himself. It's looking like, based on all of these interviews, because the driving plot device of like the first half of the movie is the interviews, because they continue having interviews with the family because Benoit Blanc knows something is up with this crime, this you know, what could be a crime, but his instincts tell him correctly that something is up, because all of the evidence is there that they need, and he has this like super awesome line: "Physical evidence can tell a clear story with a forked tongue."
And she's like, "What?"
and yeah, Lakeith Stanfield, he's like he has the most like human like what? Because like you want to talk about waxing poetic? It's some of the crazy bonkers shit that Daniel Craig says at the movie. Like I love the conversation he has with Marta at one point, where what is the Knives Out the rainbow quote? It's like a movie. It's the length of gravity's rainbow, and he's just like he's talking with her about this book, and it is an actual book, and it is not one that Rian Johnson made up. It's an actual book, and Marta says, "Oh, I've heard of it. I never read it though," and he's like, "I've never read it either. I just like the title."
But then he's like, "Oh, no one has. I've never read it either."
Yeah, it's just like shit like that, because Daniel Craig's character, he literally says shit that just doesn't make any goddamn sense, but it works because of the accent and because of.
Well, you already buy into the ridiculousness because of the accent, right?
Yeah. The accent gives him a fucking carte blanche to do whatever the fuck he wants and say whatever he wants to, because it always just like the donut hole quote later is the stuff of legend, dude. Like, I need to, if no one has ever read the quote written on a page from like a website, like quote from IMDb, it makes even less sense when you try to like read it yourself, like a donut hole in the donut's hole, but we must look a little closer. And when we do, we see that the donut hole has a hole in its center. It is not a donut hole at all, but a smaller donut with its own hole. And our donut is not whole at all.
What?
And when I read that, because I wanted to look up the exact quote, I found my favorite headline in the history of headlines. This is a Cinema Blend article that I found. And this is the headline: "Yes, that scene in Knives Out you thought made no sense actually makes no sense." It's just like, yes, you nailed it.
Oh my god, this movie, dude.
Oh, this movie is so fucking good. So, okay, the next big scene is Benoit Blanc is having this like big investigation, right? That's taking place like all over the house because he knows something is up, but he doesn't have evidence yet proving it. But through this like really funny sequence of events, when he invites Marta, because he knows Marta is involved, he invites Marta to be his Watson to his Holmes and actually be a part of the investigation.
Which he calls her Watson like 3 separate times in this movie.
Yeah, he does. And some of my favorite moments of the movie happen when she's like the Watson to his Holmes, like when they have the bit with the mud trail, where she cleverly walks through the mud and then she walks back. Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you were saying. Like, Marta's super smart too. Just like the way that she acts like a ditz, but you know, she's actually being like really smart. She since she fucked up and like lost the 50-50 shot on the range of the security camera, they have footage of her veering off in the middle of the fucking woods that she has to destroy with the fucking magnet from the security guard's room. Like, she's having to do so many mental gymnastics to cover her own ass that it's hilarious.
What's cool about the tape, though, is given the nature of the dude that's in charge of security and the cutting-edge technology he mentioned being CRT cameras in 2019, like CRT monitors and a VHS tape and stuff, like, the tape being fucked up is not a surprise to anyone. Right?
Yeah.
Like, when they say it's surprise, they're just like, just like,
There's
of course it was.
And it's all great writing.
He's like a stereotypical country bumpkin guy in overalls, talking about the cutting edge CRT monitors that are black and white, sitting on top of a VHS, a VCR, and no one is shocked that the tape is fucked up, but it's fucked up because she demagnetized it.
Yeah.
Or degossed it.
It's great writing too, because like that aspect too with the security guard being like the country bumpkin, like you talked about. Rian Johnson he's such a genius with this stuff that he fucking has so many organic like plot hole fillers throughout the movie, and it's just like the fact that the cover up like from Christopher Plummer's perspective is so fucking elaborate that nobody but a mystery novelist could come up with, you know? And it's like, It makes sense. Like, you buy... This movie is like batshit, but you kind of buy it and go along with it because this is such a fun and breezy movie. And like while they're at the security guard's office, there's a line in the background that I hadn't caught until this viewing, is the state trooper that's with him. He's looking at all of the recordings of the live like CRT, like VHS tapes being recorded. He's like, man, it looks like a Japanese horror film.
Yes, I love that line.
Yeah, he says that, and I remembered that line, but the line that I didn't catch, which blows my mind because I make the same joke like all the time. As you hear him when I think Benoit and Marta are speaking, you hear the state trooper in the background say, "Are we all gonna die in 7 days?"
Really?
He says that. I was like, how did I never notice that? I make that fucking joke all the time. Like, goddamn, I love you, Rian Johnson. I love you so much. Yeah, listen to that scene the next time you're watching it to the state trooper in the background, because he literally asks, "Are we all gonna die in 7 days?"
Oh my god.
And just like you talked about, having confidence in your script and having confidence in your viewers, that's a good fucking joke. That
and
9
confidence
times
you don't
out of
get
10,
sued.
yeah, that is a joke that most writers would just like stick on, like on Front Street and just not let you miss it. But like, I fucking watched this movie like 3 times and never noticed it. I love shit like that. I love not being spoon-fed a movie and just letting me like come to it on my own terms on like multiple rewatches and stuff.
By the way, the
awesome.
security guard is Emmett Walsh, which is in a metric fuck ton of stuff, including Blade Runner.
Yeah, he's most famous probably for he's the dude in charge of Harrison Ford's little like investigative division that actually assigns him the opening case.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in his IMDb list goes on and on and on.
He's a legendary character actor. He has like over like 250 credits on IMDb. It's insane.
Yeah.
They also have this really hilarious bit. I love the part where the dog brings back the piece of wood.
I love her throwing it away in the background.
Yeah, so the piece of wood.
When we saw that in theaters, I think you and I are the only 2 people that laughed, and I think I burst out laughing if I recall.
It's fucking great. So and when Marta is in this like just like never-ending series of like mental gymnastics of trying to in real time cover up pieces of evidence while Benoit is like 10 feet in front of her, she finds a piece of wood. What was that? Sorry?
The super sleuth.
The last gentleman sleuth, as they talked about earlier in the movie. I read about you on a Twitter article. You're famous.
Yeah, I saw a tweet about a New Yorker article about you, and then like 5 minutes later, I read that New Yorker article on you. What?
I love the I love the fact that Toni Collette's character is just fucking Gwyneth Paltrow. It's like he makes no fucking qualms. So like, what is it? Is it Flam? Is that her version of like the Goop website of all of her bullshit that she sells and it became famous off of it? Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Great.
It's fucking great. But yeah, so in order to get back into the house secretly and not be seen like entering back through like the front door where Walt still was on the front porch smoking a cigar, she has to like climb the I forget but the kind of fixture in the side of the house. She has to climb up this wood
the
structure that has she has to climb up, and then since it's not meant to be climbed upon, part of it breaks off while she's climbing back up to get back in this little like secret side entrance back into his study up in like the very top part of the house. But she accidentally breaks part of the wood, and the wood falls all the way down, and it's obviously fresh evidence because the wood isn't rotted. It's brand new broken wood. So she sees it on the ground. She fucking yeets it like a mile away. But the 2 dogs that are like the 2 German shepherds that are constantly like running around the housing area is that the fucking dog fetches it and brings it back directly to Benoit Blanc, dude.
I love also when when it shows her doing it, she walks up to it, sees how high the window is, sees the trellis, and goes, "Oh, you can't be serious." And then the voiceover goes, "I am."
Yeah, Christopher Plummer's voiceover, it's awesome, dude. Just real quick aside. The fact that this movie didn't win Best Editing is a crime to me. This movie is immaculately edited. Like the comedic timing of everything is spot on the entire movie all the way through.
The scene that we mentioned when it's switching between all the family members. The editing done there, and how they even cut in mid-sentence to someone else speaking in mid-sentence, and it makes coherent sense.
It's so good. The editing back and forth between the different interviews with the family members, the way it's just constantly cutting back and forth, but you're never lost. You always feel exactly where you're at in the plot, whether you're being given background information on the birthday party or stuff in the moment. Oh my god, it's like it should be taught in fucking colleges for editing, dude.
But could you imagine?
It's so
could
good.
You just imagine trying to edit this.
Yeah. Let's real quickly. While I have the credits still pulled up, it was edited by Bob Deshay. Like, dude, chef's kiss. Like, I don't even think this. I think this movie only got nominated for best original screenplay and did not even win that. This movie deserves cinematography. This movie deserved fucking editing, writing. Like, it's fucking fantastic. I don't know how I didn't at least get an editing nomination because it's fucking perfect.
Oh, dude, I'm looking at his filmography as editor.
What else has he done?
Holy shit, dude. Let's see. Let's start from the oldest. So we go Jungle Book to Tremors 2 Aftershocks to Deep Rising to The Mummy Returns to Van Helsing.
Oh, wow. He's done all kinds of stuff.
G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra, Godzilla, Jack the Giant Slayer, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, Star Wars Episode 8. That makes sense.
Oh, so yeah, he's buddies with Rian Johnson then, yeah.
Rampage, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Knives Out.
That is insane. Like, he can edit anything, because those are all, like, so many different genres.
Even if the movies themselves weren't good, it doesn't mean they weren't blockbusters. Looper. He did Looper. I skipped over that one.
Oh, dude, we need to watch Looper for an episode of this at some point. I fucking love Looper.
Catch Me If You Can's the second one on the list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No wonder.
Chef's kiss all the way around. Also, I'm assuming Rian Johnson was also heavily involved in the editing because
I was going to say there's no way he was not sitting next to him.
It had to have been a collaborative like the entire time because this movie is so specific and it's so unadulterated Rian Johnson. There's no way he wasn't with him at least 95% of the time during the editing booth, you know? Like
I half expected it to be edited by Rian Johnson also the way Kevin Smith does all of his own films because
yeah. Because, like, it's the most underrated aspect of movie making. Because, like, so much.
Movies are made in the editing room.
Like, one of the most interesting aspects of that's, like, just, like, kind of proof in the pudding is Quentin Tarantino's really famous editor. She passed away, sadly, after, I believe Kill Bill. But I think she... Why we need that as a stinger too if we don't get fucking DMCA'd for it. But she passed away at a certain point during his career. I believe it was after the Kill Bill films, and you'll notice like a drastic change in the length and the kind of like pacing of Quentin Tarantino's movies. It was like night and day. And now I still really like modern Quentin Tarantino films, but I do think part of it is missing because like his movies used to be really, really good and like paced very like breezy, and now that Quentin Tarantino basically has like carte blanche to edit his own movies and free reign because he no longer has this person that he deeply respected because she fucking edited Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown and like everything that started his career with, like it's like night and day. So it's like I really do think people like overlook editing because it can make a movie, it can kill a movie just like that,
Yeah,
so much that goes into it.
Topher Grace and someone else does things where they re-edit movies and
like
put them
with the
back
Star
out.
Wars. Yeah, he like did like a really famous edit of the Star Wars prequels, which everyone says are really good, but I've never actually sat down and watched them.
Yeah, and I've been waiting for him to basically start editing feature films, get hired as editor, because everyone talks about how good all of them he does is. It's not just that, but that's what the most famous one is because that was going around the internet for a while.
Yeah. I'm honestly really curious because like people like talk about how that thing like saved the prequels. Like it's like it's a lot to do. That's a tall order. Like I'm impressed just by proxy, but when I hear shit like that. But like a really awesome bit that I love too is and it's like it's not even a quick like cutaway of showing it, but when he is interviewing Marta pretty early on in the movie and they show the bit where he sees the blood in her shoes, he just directly looks down for about 3 seconds or so and you see him just kind of looking at her shoes, then he looks back up while he's talking to her, and this is the moment where he figured out she was involved, but it's just there and you miss it. It's not
I've
like
never
there's no
noticed
cut.
it.
Oh you didn't notice it? Okay, so it's on this. So next time you watch it, do you know the scene when she first pukes and they're on like the little like patio?
Yeah.
After Marta is first asked to walk out on the patio, and that's like the first interview that Benoit has with her, the first thing he does as he's first talking to her is he looks down at her shoes, and that's the moment that he saw the blood. It's fucking awesome that they actually, because I remember looking for it because I was like on a subsequent viewing of it, I was like, surely because of how OCD and like foreshadow focus Rian Johnson is, I was like, I bet you they have that moment in the movie, and sure enough, it's there. It's you don't really, it's not made attention of, but it's fucking there, and I love that. So be on the lookout for that next time you watch it.
Shooting this movie had to be a nightmare.
Yeah, let's real quickly give a shout out to, now obviously Rian Johnson is very hands-on with his cinematography as well, because he has a very distinct look that he likes for his movies and a very distinct framing that he does for a lot of shots. The cinematographer that was credited is Steve Yedlin, and again, to get full appreciation of just how good the cinematography was for this film, please watch YouTube Rian Johnson Vanity Fair and watch the way that he breaks down shots for his films, because the scene that he breaks down is the scene where Chris Evans has come in for the reading of the will. And it's the scene where they're all arguing and they have like the eat shit scene where he's like, I will not eat one iota of shit. That's the scene that he breaks down. And like the attention to detail they have of always having like Christopher Plummer's painting on the back, kind of looking over the family as, you know, like symbolism with that smirk, shit like that, which I love. Yeah, it's fucking batshit. Just it's staggering.
He also did Looper, by the way.
Oh, the cinematographer? Yeah, he has a great... Nice. So they're probably like old like film school buddies or something.
So yeah, he brought in his buddies, is what he did. He brought in people he trusts, people he knows. He knows that their style. Everything about this is crafted and thought through, dude.
Yeah, nothing happens by accident.
Oh, our Star Wars Episode 8. What do you know?
He'll probably always... It's kind of... I think... Christopher Nolan works similarly, where he's had like the same cinematographer and the same editor for like 12 straight movies on just like fucking everything. So the next bit of the movie that I wanted to talk about is so the big turning point for the middle of the film is where we find out that Harlan Thrombey has written his entire family out of the will and is giving everything, including the house, to Marta. And this... Even members of the family that were kind of assholes, but not just like complete scumbags, are revealed to be complete scumbags when this happens. Because I
thought you should be at the funeral, but I was outvoted.
Oh my god, when they have, dude, the fucking scene. Don Johnson is such a piece of shit. They're having this whole fucking conversation about the immigration like prisoners on like the border, you know. He asks Marta to come across the room, and he fucking hands her his dinner plate.
His plate that has the pie on it, like she's the hell.
Oh my god! Like, it makes you want to punch him in the face through the fucking television, dude.
And he does it almost absent-mindedly.
Yeah, he has no idea. So you know
that is completely his mindset, because he does it like absent-mindedly, and she takes it
because she's just like. She's so non-confrontational and is such a nice person. She can't even speak around these people. She can't she
won't even defend herself.
Yeah, she's so out of her element because she is just such a genuinely nice person. She has no idea how to talk to these people or how to deal with them because they're all horrible fucking people. Like, this, Jesus Christ, dude. It's like there are moments in this movie. I adore this movie, and it's intentional, but some moments like where he hands her the plate are hard to watch because it's like, you know, that's the thing that could totally happen. And that's
I love that everybody gets where her family is from wrong. Do we ever even find out where they're really from?
I think she's just from Mexico, but they say like Brazil, Ecuador,
Uruguay.
Yeah, like there's like 4 or 5 different countries that they say she's from because
the one
they're all
that really
fucking...
made me laugh the hardest. You heard like 3 or 4 of them already. And then when he tells Chris Evans he's leaving everything to Marta, he's like, "You're a Brazilian nurse?" I don't know why that one makes me laugh as hard as it does. I think it's the way he screams it.
Oh yeah, Chris Evans is fucking amazing in this. I love the so they have the moment at the will reading. Frank Oz, who's the executor of the will too, is also hilarious. I love me some Frank Oz. When Don Johnson says, "I'm sorry, Alan, but you're worthless," and he's like, "Thanks," and he just walks up and leaves the room. Love it. I also love the scene where Chris Evans quote unquote saves her by when her car is fucked up and she can't leave the reading of the will.
That is the best thing that could have happened to any of you.
The
fuck's that supposed to mean?
He's driving away from the house, and he's just laughing at the whole thing, and his face goes serious, and he just turns to her, but for real, what the shit? she just is like, God damn it. Just has like dejected look on her face.
The way he suckers into confessing everything to him is genius.
Also, just like the not so subtle bit of how his name is fucking Ransom.
I was gonna say it's in your face the whole time.
There's so much shit that is just fucking on Front Street that Rian Johnson just puts there because oh my god, I watched this movie today. I could watch it again right now. I just love it so much. Chris Evans, like you said, kind of manipulates her because what ends up being so we know what happened. We know like 3/4 the story about the murder. What you don't know until later on, and again, please watch the movie if you haven't already, and then come back. But Chris Evans essentially ends up being the main villain of the film because the setup of like the switching of the vials was completely his doing. So he is the villain, but you don't fully, like, you kind of get that he's a scumbag, but you don't know yet that he was the actual, like, the real reason that, you know, the whole thing happened. Because he was intentionally trying to set up Marta because he knew that his entire family had been written out of the will and given to Marta, and Chris Evans is aware that if Marta is determined as the reason that he died, in civil court, if you're decided to be the person that was responsible for the death, even by, you know, accidental manslaughter, you're no longer an inheritor of their will, and the fortune would have reverted back to being given to the rest of the Thrombey family. So what ends up being like kind of this movie is also interesting just from like a writing like act structure, because the lines are kind of blurred as far as like first act, second act, third act, because of the reveal of 35 minutes in with the death. That is something that's usually kind of like the big like third act twist. That kind of like introduces the second act of the movie in this. So it's just so atypical.
This movie is almost edited in such a way that you keep jumping between Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, 3 times, right? It's like you're getting a snippet of each act.
Which is like a splash more information each time they have new information given.
Yeah, it's like it just keeps cycling between all 3 acts for 3 acts.
The fact that this movie isn't a complete fucking mess goes back to their editing, because this movie, I like you said, I wouldn't even know where to begin with how immaculately it's all arranged.
I guarantee you the final product is nothing like the original script. I guarantee you.
I would be fascinated to see the like rough draft of Knives Out and then just compare it to the final one, because Rian Johnson is obviously an OCD perfectionist, so there's no telling what was changed and just how many drafts went into it. So how awesome is the quote unquote high speed car chase between Benoit Blanc?
Do you regret helping me yet? I regret not using the Beamer, not bringing the Beamer.
Yeah, because Benoit Blanc sees her at the scene of a burned down like medical facility where the toxicology report is being held for Harlan's toxicology report upon the death, that they think would confirm the vials of the medications were switched, you know, because they wanted it to not be investigated further, because any normal cop, like Harlan says, sees it as a you know, like open and closed book as far as it's a suicide, you know, no motive that they know of yet. And the only thing that Harlan couldn't account for is Benoit Blanc being a fucking, you know, gentleman sleuth and a genius. And what's also interesting too is because so many of the pieces of evidence that is given to Benoit kind of happens by accident, like with the dog fetching the piece of wood, you don't really know how good he is until the very end of the movie. You don't know if he's kind of full of shit. Like, you kind of get the impression that he kind of is up to something, and because he knows immediately that something's up, but you don't know how good he is until they have like the big step-by-step breakdown,
the big Agatha Christie
yeah
in the parlor. Yeah.
It's just interesting because usually these types of movies, the sleuth is always the coolest person in the room, and is like you think of like Benedict Cumberbatch and that version of Sherlock. They're usually like clearly the smartest person in the room. They're super cool. They're they embody genius, and that is the opposite of what, especially with the contribution of the accent. That is not Benoit Blanc at all.
He's like constantly in the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
it's. I don't want to say that he's like Inspector Gadgeting his way into solving the crime. But because he is clearly smart, but at the same time, it's such an interesting character because exactly what he told Marta at the beginning of the movie is true, right? Mm-hmm. When he follows gravity's rainbow, he gets to the end, and then it just lands in front of him. That happens time and time again throughout the whole movie, even with the one surviving copy of the toxicology report.
Yeah, and just the fact that the prime suspect in his eyes, because of the bloodstain on her shoe, literally can't lie without puking.
Yeah,
that's all. That is a huge boon for him, because when you know that such a prime part of the investigation literally can't lie without vomiting.
I'm so sorry. I thought we were speaking figuratively.
Well, dude, I love Lakeith Stanfield when she pukes it. He's like, "Oh shit!"
And then I love. Okay, I know we're rewinding now, but I love then she's off camera. He's talking to the cops, and he just points off camera and is like, "But you don't move, you don't go anywhere." And it cuts to her trying to go back in the door, and she's like, "I just wanted to get some scope." I love that line.
Yeah. So many throwaway lines that are just gold that they just throw out there. But I also love the line from Lakeith Stanfield after they have caught up with her, because she's on the highway. Literally, he's like, Chris Evans is like, "Are you flooring it?" She's like, "I am literally flooring it." And they're going 60 while the cop cars just casually catch up to them. And they eventually...
I love that he's hanging out of the window pointing to his phone because he's calling her. And he's just outside her window. Her.
Yeah. And then when they finally catch up to them, Lakeith Stanfield just says, "Okay, that was the dumbest car chase of all time."
I love also when they take... Have you caught this before? I've caught this the last few times I've watched it. When they take ransom and they're putting him in the back of the car, and he's like, "Okay, watch your head. Okay, thank you." And then you hear the detective say to the trooper, "You don't have to thank him."
Yeah. It's also cool, like the bit between him and the trooper too. We're at the will reading. Jamie Lee Curtis like, "You cops, get the fuck out," or whatever, and Lakeith Stanfield just stands his guard because they have no authority to make them leave, and the trooper is like in the act of turning around.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 times he tries to actually leave,
and he always has to like grab his shoulder and steer him back into place. Like, "No, we're not fucking leaving, you idiot." But it's never said.
What it reminded me of tonight, because I just watched this movie right before the recording, was IG-11. In fucking Mandalorian, keep trying to blow himself up. Stop it!
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's just constantly trying to leave every time they say to leave, and then the detective just stops him. Yeah, like absent-mindedly almost. Like he doesn't look at him. He just reaches out and stops him. Like, this is a constant problem he has with the trooper.
Yep. So at this moment in the film, when they have caught Chris Evans and Marta, they have enough evidence on file just between all the bullshit that's been going on over the past 48 hours. Because Lakeith Stanfield, the detective, has granted Benoit Blanc 48 hours to kind of solve the case or find some reason to continue it, because it's for a standard cop, like Harlan had said, the case is it's shut, it's open and shut, just it's a suicide, close it up, move on to the next thing. But they have the scene where he is going to be driving back to the house or wherever their next destination is, and it's Benoit with Marta. Marta needs to kind of continue the rest of her plan that she had developed with Chris Evans about going to meet a contact that had emailed her this kind of random meetup location where they have like a copy of the toxicology report, even though the medical examination office has been burned down and the actual evidence destroyed, but there is still a copy of the report out there in the wind. So she goes to the destination and kind of like ninjas away from Benoit, and she finds Fran, who is the kind of like housemaid, kind of like that cleans the house,
housekeeper.
Yeah, and for Harlan at the house and the rest of the family when they're there. And
could you imagine dusting that house? That was all I could think of this time.
Oh, dude, they also talk about in that YouTube video I've mentioned a couple times about like they go into detail about some of the random shit they just have. Like there's not an inch of free space in that entire fucking house. There's just so much like weird memorabilia everywhere, that is all there for like a specific callback to some crazy thing that like Rian Johnson saw in a movie like 30 years ago. It's like even the goddamn set dressing is like full of callbacks and like thematic like representations of the characters and stuff. It's nuts. But so she ends up finding where Fran, the housekeeper, is dying. She has been injected with morphine, similar to the Harlan case, and you end up finding out, this was all set up by Chris Evans. How genius is the bit about you did this and Hugh did this? I love that bit.
Yes, that's
fucking genius, dude. Like Hugh is Chris Evans' actual like first name in the film. He goes by Ransom, his middle name. Only the help, quote unquote, calls him Hugh. And it's just like shit like that is super important foreshadowing.
You made the help call you Hugh because you're an asshole.
So like little shit like that is so pivotal to the later bits of the film, and it's just there. And it's like you catch it on subsequent viewings, but it's just like it's pivotal information masked as just standard conversations. And I love that type of writing, especially for murder mysteries, because it's very hard to catch people off guard with these types of films because everyone's seen 1,000 movies. Everyone has seen, if they like whodunits, they typically have seen a lot. Most of the time you kind of figure shit out if you're paying attention, but you don't really realize what you needed to be paying attention to because everything is masked so well all throughout. So what ends up happening at this point, they have Chris Evans in custody. Chris Evans opens up about the specifics that Marta has told Chris Evans about how, like the switching of the vials and everything. And it culminates back in this big scene back at the house where Benoit has brought in Ransom because after when they are going back into the house because of what Marta is told by Fran in her moment where she can, have the option to save her, and she does the right thing. She calls 911 to try and save her because she's dying of the morphine overdose. She mentions the stash where they had smoked weed earlier in the film. That's like the great niece of Harlan, I think. And that's where the toxicology report is hidden. And this ends up being the thing that kind of fills in the rest of the donut holes for Mr. Benoit.
Are we talking about Meg?
Meg, yeah. The daughter of Tony Collette.
Meg is his granddaughter.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that's right, because Tony... Okay, yeah, because I'm getting like the logistics of the family. Like Tony Collette was married into the family because she was the wife of the son of Harlan who had died. Yeah, so you're right, it is his granddaughter. So they have this big... Shut up. Meg, who let you back in the house? Speaking of Meg, too, I wanted to quickly mention a couple of like just gorgeous bits of cinematography throughout the movie that I noticed. I love the bit where Marta is talking to Meg on the phone and all you see is Meg in the dark and like the light shining upon her eyes. It's just like a really cool, well-lit scene that's it's like even the fucking just standard phone call has like this like little like a twinge of artistry to it with like the lighting that's really cool. There's also...
You know how everyone in the family is two-faced? Mm-hmm. If you look at any time they're talking to Marta, just about one half of their face is lit, and the other half is in shadow.
Oh, yeah. I love little bits like that.
And they're all being two-faced as they talk to her, and they're literally two-faced in the lighting.
There's a really cool moment earlier on in the movie where Marta goes back to her apartment where she lives with her family in like this little like condo. When her mother is watching Murder, She Wrote, if you actually look behind her and her mom, so they show that she's looking at the TV screen and watching Murder, She Wrote. When she actually sits down and you no longer see the TV, the Murder, She Wrote episode is perfectly framed in a mirror behind them on the couch.
Is it really?
And I'm just like, I noticed at the time, and I was like, you know how long it took to stage that shot to have it so perfectly reflected, and no one is even going to notice it. It's like, holy fuck. It's like next levels, dude. Like, so much crazy shit.
So much work put into this
so
movie.
much work into just throwaway
I'm tired
details.
just talking about it.
It's
like,
crazy,
my
man.
God, there's so much shit.
It's fucking crazy. How you were talking about like the two-faced nature of the family, the framing of the scene when Michael Shannon confronts her in the hallway is really well edited and really well framed.
It's like a fucking Jack the Ripper scene almost.
Yeah, dude. So he has been walking around with a cane throughout the film, and it's presented like a horror movie in the scene. So he catches her after the will reading in the back, like a exit way of her condo, and he's advancing towards her, and they are cutting back between him looking at her being kind of freaked out, and just the super close up of his cane connecting with the floor. And she is properly framed like a standard shot, but if you actually look at the way Michael Shannon is framed, he is zoomed in because he's like smothering her like in like a claustrophobic sense. So he's literally like clouding the frame, like he's smothering her, you know, not literally, but you know, like he's being crazy and just kind of like advancing towards her, you know, and freaking her out. Shit like
and
that.
His performance in that scene too is he's got that crazy look in his eye, dude.
Yeah, like Michael Shannon was so immaculately casted for that role too. That is such a Michael Shannon thing where you can flip a gear and have like the really funny scene, you know, like where Don Johnson and him fight and they start slapping at each other and everyone just like is basically laughing at them. And then an hour later in the movie,
do this more often.
He's like, you go from that into the spectrum to like he's like you said, he's like fucking Jack the Ripper almost in this hallway. Like that's a lot of range.
Like
just
I
within
kept
your own
expecting him
character.
to just snap his cane like an anime character because he's crushing it so hard.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah. So much just amazing bits of just artistry in every way you can think of it. Performances, the writing, the set dressings, like especially in the house.
Dude, props to the lighting guys even. Like everything in this movie.
Yep. So they have the culmination of the mystery happen after Benoit sees the toxicology report and finds out that Harlan was actually perfectly fine. That
that's
even
not the
though,
way I thought this was gonna go.
the Chris Evans did everything right as far as like his little plan. What he wasn't expecting was for Marta to be so good at her job that even without reading the labels, she knew based on the viscosity and like the weight and like the very subtle nuances of the different chemicals, because she'd done it 1,000 times with administering the drugs for Harlan. There was actually nothing wrong with them. That if they had just called the ambulance like she wanted to and like she talked about, he would have ended up being fine and he didn't have to kill himself. And it's such a heartbreaking moment because you just see because Rian Johnson and the cinematographer have it framed on her reaction when Benoit tells her this, and you just see like this second of just devastating like heartbreak as she knows that
as she's putting it together.
Yeah, that her friend killed himself for no reason really, and it's just so heartbreaking. And it's interesting too in that even in this movie where the Columbo style mystery is shown to you with the way that the death happens, there's still so much mystery behind the lead up to it and the ramifications of it between the family and the will with the inheritance and everything. Where it's like, even though the mystery is revealed, kind of, you don't really know what's going on in the background until the very end, once all of these details kind of come to light. And how awesome is the shot where Benoit sits down in front of the knife display and there's just like 1,000 knives pointing towards his head in the background. It's such an awesome shot.
It's been like off center every time except then, and then it was centered.
And it's also interesting too because when you think about it, and I just thought about this like this last viewing today, what is the shape of the big circle of knives? And with Daniel Craig filling the center, it's like the donut hole. It
is. It's like a spider web and also a donut hole.
It's like he is filled in the donut hole because he is now in the center of it. And it's like, fucking hell, that has to be intentional, right?
There's no
way. They have so much specificity with every way the movie is constructed that had to be intentional. Like it's all worked in one way or another, whether you realize what you're looking at is intentional or not. There's so much there to dive into and dissect, and like I'm sure this was like, I think you said like the fourth time you watched the film. I think this was like the third, maybe the fourth. I've lost track of like how many times I've watched it, and I'm sure the next time I watch it, I will also find more shit. Like the fucking, so we're all gonna die in 7 days. That like I never fucking heard somehow.
Tonight was the first time that I even realized probably my favorite bit of foreshadowing, which
what's that?
Which was when, you mentioned a line earlier when Harlan says there's so much of himself in that boy, talking about Ransom, right?
Yeah.
Well, then we talked about how in like an instant he came up with all of these ways for her to get out of being in trouble, and then he kills himself. In a moment of clarity, driving down the road, Ransom came up with this whole fucking plan the same way that Harlan himself came up with her escape plan.
Yep.
There is so much of himself in that kid. He literally did the same thing in about the same amount of time.
And he would have gotten away with it if
it weren't for her and her meddling dogs.
If it weren't for her and her meddling German shepherds,
yeah.
Man, this movie. So in this sequence where Benoit is kind of doing the gentleman sleuth thing and just like breaking down the full play-by-play on what really happened. I love where Benoit is like halfway through it, and Lakeith Stanfield, the detective, tries to like now ask him a question, and then the state trooper's like, no, shh. He's into it, dude. He's like a fanboy at that point. It's great. Yeah.
Because every time they mention something or make a reference to something, he knows the name of the book or the name of the movie, or he knows the name of the goddamn Hallmark movie Fran was talking about.
Yeah. He knows like all the statues outside, like the random bits around the house and on the property are like all callbacks to like the books that Harlan had written, and it's like all shit that he knows.
It's obvious why that character became a cop. It's real obvious what inspired that character to become a cop.
For sure. So Benoit breaks everything down, and I love the bit to where they have a little bit of agency for Marta in the end, to where she tricks Chris Evans into confessing by lying and then puking all over his face like projectile style, dude. And then like the way that Chris Evans is like, what the shit? I love it. I fucking die laughing every time I watch that.
I love that the trooper's like, what? That means she lied. And then the detective's like, yeah, we know.
We know. Because she lies and says that Fran survived, and Chris Evans thinks he's fucked because Fran is going to be able to corroborate because she saw him switching the vials. She can kind of just with her testimony, he would have been fucked.
And just before she pukes in his face, he's like, what do you got on me? Attempted murder? And is going on about how he tried to kill Fran, but she's alive. So what now? And then she pukes, revealing that no, she lied, which is probably the biggest turn that I did not expect, and probably the one I should have seen coming.
Yeah.
Which is genius. Because they fucking rope-a-doped me.
And especially on first view, like, you're just so riveted by this sequence that you can't help. Like there's so much information going around, and the way it's presented is so cool, and the way it's edited is so great that like you don't have like the mental capacity to really like project what can happen next, because you're like the state trooper. You're just riveted by like the way he's explaining it in the story, and by lying and getting him on tape, because the phone call that Marta got is actually confirming that Fran had died. So Chris Evans is committed to murder.
Can you imagine being the doctor on the other end of that phone? When she's like, oh, that's great news, when he's saying she died.
Oh, I never even thought about that. Yeah, it was like what the fuck?
Could you imagine being the doctor on the other end of the phone?
I never even considered that, but yeah, they had to be just like, what? What a real bitch.
They had the same reaction as Chris Evans. What the shit when they hang up the phone.
What the shit? So, obviously, Chris Evans now knows he's for sure fucked. So he's just like in for a penny, in for a pound, which is like a recurring quote that the Benoit and now Chris Evans
in for a penny.
And it's like really like the way that they edit the slow mo of him like grabbing the knife and like lunging at her and Benoit the detective are like trying to like leap in to save her. It's so
love
cool
that everyone has these big dramatic reactions and the idiot trooper is still trying to figure out like, is this happening? Like he's the only person that doesn't move in the slow mo.
Yeah, because he's just like fucking there. He's not even like he's never actually doing anything. He's just like there to be able to confirm like references to the dude's books. Like that's like his only purpose.
Yeah.
It's
and so funny.
as a payoff to the foreshadowing we talked about earlier about the bit with the until you so much of being that kid playing life like a game without consequences until you can't tell the difference between a stage prop and a real knife. So you don't know yet that until Chris Evans, I love like where it looks like he stabbed her, but he has grabbed a fake prop knife and he like to confirm it, he like
I love the
does
up
the
and
little
down
stabbing motion like 3 times, and you just like the squeak of the prop,
Yes, that's my favorite sound effect in the whole thing.
It's like, and he's like, and his delivery of shit,
and then they rip him off of her right when he says it.
The way he says, like, I want to know how many takes that Chris Evans said shit in that moment because they got the perfect one. That just like the inflection and the way he says it says 1,000 words in its own right.
I almost wonder if it's ad-libbed.
Yeah, that too, because they did have a lot of ad-libbing going on, if I recall correctly, from what
I almost wonder if it's ad-libbed because he's just hit, and then they rip him off of her right after.
Fuck, such a good performance.
Oh god,
such a good delivery.
And then she just lays there holding the knife.
Yeah, it's also cool too that the painting of Harlan they always show in the background, he's actually holding the knife that he stabs into the board when he's having the conversations
which is the same one he slit his
Marta.
own throat with.
Yeah, super cool detail. So at this point, Benoit has solved the case. They have enough to where, since Marta really didn't do anything wrong, and because Benoit cleverly has Marta lie and say that Chris Evans was the one who had initiated her to be the driver in the car chase, and Marta is essentially off scot-free at this point. She's no longer implicated in any of the crimes, and because she's now at this point kind of friends with Benoit, she's now going to get away free. And they kind of show you the way that the movie's going to go as far as like because what the family wants her to do throughout this whole movie is they want her to renounce the inheritance because she's not a Thromby.
They want her to renounce her wish.
Yeah, they're all a bunch of fucking scumbags. Even the ones that pretend to be friends with Marta are also just kind of looking out for themselves. They're all fucking scumbags. They wanted to renounce the inheritance despite it being what Harlan wanted, and because it would genuinely be good for all of them. Like he's not wrong. They are all so twisted.
Yeah,
and they were all born with such silver spoons, like that they have no idea how to like create anything for themselves, and they're all it's turned them all very selfish. And it's interesting too, is like you can see they're all much more upset about the will reading than the fact that their fucking dad just committed suicide on his birthday. That part didn't affect them at all because he is just they're giddy about the fucking inheritance. That they don't give a shit their dad fucking died. Even though he was a good dad he gave his daughter a fucking $1 million. He was giving Toni Collette $100,000 yearly to cover Meg's tuition, and she double dipped to have the money sent both to her and the college to steal $400,000 from him. And it's just like, he was being incredibly generous to all of them. He let Walt run the production of the publishing company, which had to have been lucrative in its own right, even though he wasn't really doing anything.
Right.
He was being very generous to them, and it would have been good for them, but they don't see that. They just want the money. They're all just selfish pieces of shit. So what we end on the like one of the most like iconic final shots of the movie now to me is where Ransom has been taken away. And you have like the whole family that's still on the grounds, like looking back up at Marta, and Marta just walks out holding Harlan's coffee mug and it's really cool too because you can tell it was intentional.
I love that Don Johnson has the black eye now. By the way,
Oh yeah, that's a subplot we hadn't mentioned. So the thing I mentioned earlier about how Jamie Lee Curtis has said, Dad and I had our own secret way of communicating with the ink that is only shown by being shown a flame in proximity to it, is the note that Harlan left for Jamie Lee Curtis confirming that Don Johnson had cheated on her and that she needs to dump him as soon as possible because he's a piece of shit. She finds that and then like decks him off screen, which is cool that happens off screen.
Also, I love that he's waving a wad of cash to the cops taking ransom away when he's being hauled out.
Yep, because he's a fucking asshole, dude.
Also a crime.
He's a piece of shit. So it's really cool that you can tell it was intentional. The coffee mug that says "My house, my rules, my coffee." Marta's Ana de Armas's fingers are perfectly covering up the 3 lines of words that are on the side of the mug, just to have it like pop at the end where it says "My house." That's the one that's exposed, on the coffee cup. So cool. Because they had to specifically have her hold it that way to have it just pop for the final shot, and that's the movie. So, fuck, dude.
Such a good movie.
I just watched it today. We just covered it in complete detail, despite our random Last Jedi and Kathleen Kennedy divergent conversations. But I could watch it again right now and still have a good time and still find new shit to enjoy. It's just a great fucking movie.
The thing that I've been thinking about when I was waiting to do the podcast and cleaning up my tea and stuff was, if it weren't for Kathleen Kennedy, I want to know what a Rian Johnson Indiana Jones would look like starring Carl Urban.
Ooh. Those are 2 great tastes that just might taste great together, Ron. Yeah, I would watch that. Dude, it doesn't matter. You could be telling me that, like, fucking, Rian Johnson, they're making a Tetris movie? I'd be like, why the fuck are you making a Tetris movie? But if they were like, but Rian Johnson's writing and directing, I was like, oh, okay, I'm interested now. I'll watch that. The fucking genre does not matter. I will watch whatever the fucking dude makes because his movies are always at the very least interesting. And there's so much. Every movie that Rian Johnson makes is a passion project, and it comes across because he just loves writing so much and he's so good at it. And there's always like a lot of heart to his characters too, like in almost everything. Like there's just he makes you able to care about shit that is typically just like thrown away details in other films. I love that about him. But yeah, I think that's gonna be. Did you have any other topics about Knives Out that we didn't talk about along the way?
The only thing that I wanted to talk about that was kind of interesting is I had to look it up. I was in the middle of looking it up when Christina asked me this. Christina being my wife, for those that don't know. And what I was looking up was, are there people out there that really puke when they lie?
Oh, okay. This is interesting. I have not looked into this myself.
There's a lot of articles I found, but the one that I read was from Slate because that's a website I recognize. Written by Marissa Martinelli. And this came out. When did Knives Out come out? I know it was 2019. This article is
November 2019.
So November 25th is what this article is dated, 2019.
Okay.
So according to Dr. David A. Johnson, professor of gastroenterology at Eastern Virginia Medical School and the past president of the American College of Gastroenterology, says that in his 42 years of experience, he's never run specifically into someone that has this reaction when they lie. However, being emotionally upset or distraught can be a trigger to just make you just puke every time you're upset. And if someone has that kind of bias about lying, that the idea is emotionally upsetting to them, they could puke in theory when they tell a lie. That was fucking fascinating to me. Yeah.
I had never even because it's something I feel like I should have Googled because it is something like just one of those odd little tangential things that would be something I'd Google, but I never had. That's really interesting that it's actually a feasible condition someone could have.
Yeah, he says, but being emotionally upset can sometimes be a trigger. This is maybe what's reflected in the lie, that the patient knows that it is disconcerting to their integrity.
Huh. Interesting. Which flies with her character because she's just a genuinely good person, and you can tell that like. Could you imagine having and like you totally buy why like Harlan is giving her his fortune because she's the only one fucking worth a damn that's ever near the fucking
right?
household. Like everyone in her fucking family, even the ones
that his own regrets. Like he talked like he doesn't deserve it even.
Yeah, because he's like you can kind of see like with Christopher Plummer's character is you can kind of see that like in his youth he probably was. A lot like Ransom, and just when someone's usually like that intelligent.
Well, that's the implication, right? That's the implication when he said the line that he sees a lot of himself in that kid.
And the only thing that kind of got him out of that phase was, growing older and getting more perspective on life and getting more perspective on your kids and your grandkids and the way that they were all responding to. Conversations he was having with them about, like the potential will in the future and everything, like with Ransom and, other conversations he'd had with other members of the family, like Don Johnson, and just how much of a colossal piece of shit the almost all of them were. Fuck all of y'all. You don't get shit. You've gotten enough. Like, really, Toni Collette? You were getting $400,000 and that wasn't enough for you? Like, fuck off. Like, they're all pieces of shit. They didn't deserve it. And it's so cool that, like, it's a shame that he killed himself, but it is really cool that like his final act, he did all of this for Marta, his great friend.
He gave his life for her.
Yeah, he did, and he gave so much for his kids that they didn't respect it because they never realized how privileged they were. And Marta understands like what the inheritance can mean because she's been on the other side of it. Like she has been, like she's living in like a condo.
This is beyond life-changing amount of money.
Yeah, she's living, and the resources can help get her mother, converted into being a legitimate citizen of the United States. It's so cool. It's and like what we've been talking about, the kind of like. The personal background to her character is something you never see in a whodunit. You never see that much attention to detail and like heart given to their characters, and I love that about that because you actually give a shit. Most of the time, the people in a murder mystery are like the characters that just get like off in the first scene of like a CSI or like a like a Law and Order episode where they're just cannon fodder for the plot. And that is not what this movie is. Every character has a purpose. Every character. Has a they're not just haphazardly thrown on the screen.
Not a single iota of your time is wasted.
Indeed.
To bring it back around.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised we didn't end up in another tangent about something because
I've been restraining myself
after the great Kathleen Kennedy Kumbaya conversation of 2021. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think that's gonna be a wrap for our Knives Out episode.
If you can't tell, we really enjoyed this movie.
Oh, dude. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is why we changed the scheduling around. Because after the world has just been a fucking shit show over the past 2 weeks, I was like, you know what? I just want to sit down with the fucking movie I love and just have fun watching it and then just kind of gush about it because, like, fuck, it is. I think it's a perfect movie. Outside of Chris Evans' fucking lipstick,
if it weren't for the goddamn lipstick.
If it wasn't for the fucking lipstick, man, there's always got to be a blemish. Nothing can ever be truly perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you would like to follow us for show updates, please check us out on Twitter. It's over at SPR Filmcast. We are also available to subscribe for future episodes on various platforms such as iTunes, Amazon Podcast. I think we're on Stitcher, all kinds of different stuff.
Stitcher's fucking.
Oh, is Stitcher still a nightmare? Okay,
Stitcher's
all the things.
Nightmare.
All the things not Stitcher. So just if you just Google Screenplay Rewind, and I think the first link that pops up is Spotify. That's a pretty popular engine for people to pull up podcasts and everything.
That's not an accident. Anchor is owned by Spotify.
Oh, interesting.
That's the service we use.
Interesting. Good to know. So that is where you can follow the podcast. Ron, where can people find you when you're not waxing poetic about Knives Out with me on this podcast?
I'm on Twitter at RonSenseTV, and I'm on Twitch Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday evenings, streaming video games. And I am RonSenseTV there and YouTube.
You've heard us on many a podcast talk about Dark Souls. Now you can actually go watch Ron play Dark Souls a lot, and he does it quite often.
I've been getting into the mods.
Yeah, it's a deep dive because there's like 500 of them that are all super interesting. So please go check them out there.
The last thing I want to say before we announce the next film is, if you would like to help us out, the absolute easiest way to do that is ratings and reviews. And we would like you to be honest. If there's something you're not happy with, leave that in your rating and review. Maybe we can change your mind. If you absolutely loved it, give us the 5 stars and write how much you loved it.
Cut to a 1-star review by Kathleen Kennedy.
All the podcast availability sites have an algorithm, and it really helps get more eyes on the podcast and more ears listening if there is activity around it with ratings and reviews.
Absolutely.
So it is the absolute easiest way to help us out if you genuinely have something to say.
Yep.
So, with that, I don't know how you're going to feel about this movie, Jeff. I feel like it's a coin toss.
Okay.
It is available on Netflix. If
I
you're
will try
a
to be
Netflix
civil.
subscriber.
We'll try to be civil.
With a whopping 6.1 user rating on IMDb, a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, with
a real barn burner. Okay.
With a 46% audience score. But hey, according to IMDb, it is trending upwards in popularity.
Probably because we're talking about it right now, and that's like that's
all
you
works,
needed.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the way it works. The film I am picking is Lockout.
Oh, the Guy Pearce one,
which we have mentioned before.
Interesting. Yeah, this is the one that John Carpenter successfully sued because it's a giant ripoff of Escape from New York, apparently. But I haven't seen it. So.
It is, in my opinion, the plot is definitely that. But it is shot, no pun intended, a lot like if Die Hard were in space. I'm not in any way saying it's as good as Die Hard, but it is shot with the intention of it basically being Die Hard in space. It does star Guy Pearce, Maggie Grace. I love
Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce is fucking awesome and everything.
Lenny James, which people probably know best as Morgan on The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah.
And Peter Stormare.
Oh, shit. I love me some Peter Stormare, too. I fucking pencil.
The fucking pencil!
Anytime anyone ever says Peter Stormare, or I'm like browsing online and I happen to see like a picture of Peter Stormare, I just hear that line in my head, with a fucking pencil.
American parts, Russian parts, all made in Taiwan!
Nice. I love me some Peter Stormare. Yeah, I love, at the very least, I will love the cast because I like those 3 dudes a lot.
I think this movie takes a lot of shit for no reason. And when I was working at the theater as a projectionist, this movie was considered the short straw for who had to screen it. And I was like, I will happily take the short straw. I don't give a shit. I've been looking forward to this movie, and I enjoyed it. Yeah. People were like, it's about a prison in space. It's dumb. I don't give a shit. I want the dumb thing. The dumb movies are the ones I want. Yeah. It's great.
What platforms is it available on?
It is available on Netflix for subscribers to stream. And it's available to rent and buy in all the usual places. Apple, YouTube, Amazon.
Cool.
Vudu. So, yeah.
Sweet. I will be watching it on the Netflix then. Oh, and just a quick side note, too. What we did when we rescheduled the selection of Jojo Rabbit will be the movie selected after Ron's pick of Lockout. So within the next month or so is when we'll be recording Jojo. So if you had watched that already or were planning on following along with us with that one, you still have time. We'll be doing Lockout as Ron's pick as we alternate film selections. So we'll have Lockout in about 2 weeks after this recording, and then 2 weeks after that, we'll be back with Jojo. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun to talk about. I could fucking talk about Knives Out every fucking day of the week. Like I said, we could run an entire fucking 52-week straight Grown Ups 2 podcast like that those guys did, where that's all they covered. Except for we wouldn't want to hang ourselves after like the first week. I could just talk Knives Out every fucking day. I absolutely love it. Like people, I remember this year especially, people were talking about. I think it eventually kind of trended because people had kind of designated Knives Out a really good Thanksgiving movie. because it boils down family members arguing inside a house, I guess.
Right.
Knives Out is an everyday movie for me. I could watch this at any point and always enjoy my time with it. So please go watch Knives Out. And we appreciate you listening to us, and y'all have a good one.
Thanks for listening.
What?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt had a voice cameo?
Yep. He is. When Marta's sister is watching the crime show on the TV, the
Is
detective
that
on the Volt
him?
TV. That's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh my God, he's got probably the best line in the movie. No, not him, but the other guy. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it is him.
Yeah. Make a mental note. We can talk about it in the trivia background shit at the end of the episode.